Flamingo91KL from Serbia asks, is it possible to play a 1 versus 1 game where you lose no units, buildings or heroes, no matter how long the game lasts? Well, the answer to that is probably yes. It is possible to play a 1 versus 1 game, whether you win it or not, I don't know. But, that's a very big challenge to not lose any units, and obviously that depends. Could you do that at high level? At low level, yes. High level, almost impossible to never lose any units at all. And your best bet would probably be to be undead for this, because undead have like the best capabilities of keeping themselves alive. The Death Knight has the aura for regenerating health and keeping the units fast and flexible, and the Fiends can counter air and they can counter ground, and they're ranged and they have quite a lot of health and a hell of a lot of damage, and the Death Knight can coil them and keep them alive. So I would go Death Knight and Lich and Fiends and that sort of build for this kind of strategy. And how long would the game last? No idea. There's no real way to answer that. So yeah, thank you. Science of Warcraft asks, and I just checked, he didn't state what country he's from, but he is. He's from Russia, because I'm just looking at his YouTube channel at the moment, Science of Warcraft. He's the guy that posts video responses to some of my videos, and I allow him to do so because they're Warcraft 3 related, and you can get a lot of good tips and tricks from his videos. He covers a lot of nice little few things that you may not know about certain races or ways to use items and such. So yeah, you can check out his videos. And he asks, hi, how many hit points have the items? I think that's Russian. That's a different type of Russian, because I've already done Russian, so I was trying it different, and it kind of worked, I think. How many hit points have the items? Well, I kind of knew the answer to this, but I had to cheat and check and use the Warcraft 3 editor. And the items have 75 hit points. So to give you some sort of indication, I'm sure he knows this anyway, early game with like a level 1 hero, it would probably take about 3 hits to kill an item. So if an item drops from an enemy and you don't want the enemy to have it and you can't pick it up, attack it 2 to 3 times and you'll destroy it, because your hero will probably be doing about 25 to 30 DPS. So 75 hit points for units, for items rather, and that's that. Free Leg Free Ganser from Lithuania asks, or says, hello WTii, I am from Lithuania and I would like to ask you this. Why exactly do you think undead are so overpowered, and why do you think Blizzard never nerfed them? I don't know if that's right or not. Yes, I can answer this very easily. What exactly do you think about undead are so overpowered? Well, they're not overpowered in 1 versus 1. This goes to the latter part of the question as well. But in 4 versus 4, they are overpowered because they have very early access to units that are just tier 2. They're amazing. Tier 3, they're still good, but you get them at tier 1. They're called Fiends, and these Fiends, they do ridiculous amount of damage. Not the best DPS necessarily. I mean, they probably do kind of averagey DPS compared to other ranged units. I've never compared them. But the point is when it comes to micro, damage is more important than DPS. Because with Fiends, you hit, run. Hit, run. And their hits do way more damage than any other range at this point in the game, very early. And remember, they're ranged, so they can hit quite easily and stay away from their opponents. And then obviously they've got something like a 2-second cooldown, so they have a slow attack. So you hit, count in your head, you know, up to 2 seconds, whatever it might be 1.5 seconds, just say it's 2 seconds. Count up to 2 seconds, and then hit again. So you're getting like the maximum damage out of them, whilst taking minimum damage. And the heroes are just ridiculously good for 4 versus 4. Death Knight and that. They just gel beautifully, and Undead being overpowered, once again they get Frostworms, the most powerful unit really for 4 versus 4. Siege Tanks is the most powerful unit, but that's hard to explain. I've already explained that in other videos, and some people might not get that, but anyway, Frostworms are way up there as an overpowered unit. So yes, for 4 versus 4, Undead are overpowered because they have a lot of super units basically. Fiends are super units for what they do. Frostworms are super units for what they do, and the heroes are just absolutely outstandingly amazing. And why do you think Blizzard never nerfed them? Because undead are actually kind of weak in 1 versus 1. In fact, they're highly regarded as the worst race in 1 versus 1. Because they can't really get away with the stuff that they do in 4 versus 4. The reason why they're good in 4 versus 4 is they can get away with stuff. If you let an undead get away with hitting you with fiends and frostworms, then of course you're going to be in trouble, because those units are very powerful if they're untouched. But in 1 versus 1, it's far more difficult to get away with hitting your opponent with fiends and frostworms and not feeling the consequences for it. Because in 1 versus 1, your opponent may be orc, they may have raiders, they can totally and utterly screw over your fiends and easily snipe them off with their heroes. 4 versus 4, it's a lot harder to deal with undead, because they have strong bases as well. That's another issue in itself, is their bases are just nightmares to attack compared to other races. But 1 versus 1, they're actually kind of weak, so that's why they've never really been nerfed. So, yeah. Mafag from Iceland, whose name... Oh no, this is your area. I was going to say that's your name, what the hell, but even then it's still hard to pronounce, even if it's an area. Hafnaf Shorkha. What on earth? You got a strange language there, boy. Okay, you say this. Do you think, as far as the strategies are concerned, that the number of strategies in Warcraft 3 have completely been exploited and used? And if you were a balance manager of Warcraft 3, what changes would you make, considering making in order to make the game more enjoyable? Oh, I don't think that was right at all, but yes, let's answer your question. As far as the strategies are concerned, the number of strategies in Warcraft 3 have been completely exploited and used. I guess the game's over 10 years old, so I imagine that every single strategy that could possibly be conceived has been done. But I still say it's got loads of playability, especially replayability, because compared to other games, like StarCraft 2, for example, because Warcraft 3 has things like neutral taverns and neutral neutral heroes from the taverns, and mercenaries and items that you can buy, there really is an almost unlimited number of strategies you can get away with in Warcraft 3. The choices are yours. I mean, I've proved it enough with a lot of my videos, is I'm always trying to do something new and weird. It's a bit harder now I'm higher level, but at least in the older videos I was really going bizarre strategies that just totally didn't make sense. You can have a lot of fun with that. Just adding one neutral hero, like Alchemist, to your army completely and utterly changes the way you will play. Or if you got a Naga Sea Bitch instead of the Alchemist, that would totally and utterly change how you're going to play that game. So Warcraft 3 is way up there when it comes to strategies. If you were the balance manager of Warcraft 3, what changes would you make would you consider making in order to make the game more enjoyable? I'd remove Orc, and I'd make it so that ghouls can fly. And I'm just going to leave it at that. Chugaholic from US, Georgia, asked this question. Sakes is my Warcraft 3 name. I'm from US, Georgia. What hero do you think has the most Warcraft 3 delay? Well, that's a strange question, but I actually have a straight up answer for it. I'm going to say Tauren Chieftain, because when you try to do War Stomp, he takes forever to lift up his foot and then slam the ground, and everyone else just runs away before he's actually managed to do it. And he also definitely has the most delay when it comes to his ultimate, because when he dies, he's dead for quite a while. We're talking about resurrection here. He's level 6, and you have a little Ankh there on the ground, and it takes like a good 5 or 6 seconds before he gets his ass back up on the ground and into the battle. So yeah, I'm going to say the Tauren Chieftain has the most delay. Delenis Wow from USA, Massachusetts, and Boston. He says a Boston accent will suffice. He says, this is a question for your 4,000 sub special from Ted in Massachusetts, USA. If you could add a unit to each race, what would they be? Let's see. If I could add a unit to each race, well, that's a really tough one. I got to give you a short answer to this because you could go to days what you could basically add balance-wise. Let's see. Humans. What could they do with? God, this is really tough. Really tough. Humans kind of have everything. That's the problem. Humans have got like. I don't think they have a very fat, large, tanky unit that's ground. So I'll give them something like that. I'll basically try and go for stuff that they don't have. That way they can be a bit more flexible. Otherwise, this is a really tough question for like a whole episode in itself. You know. Night Elf. Let's see. Night Elf, I would give them an even bigger fairy dragon that does twice the amount of damage as Shims and can hit air. Because I like fairy dragons. Orc. I would give orcs the goblin sappers. I think that'd be great if they were able to build goblin sappers. It wouldn't be balanced. We're not talking about balance here. This is just for fun. Obviously, the giant fairy dragon is not very balanced. Or undead. What could undead have? Undead could have like the character from Amnesia that sort of runs around, and anything that gets close to it basically just dies of fear. So it'd be like super and utter overpowered because you just couldn't get close to this unit, and you'd have to try and kill it from range. So yeah, I'd go with that. Mohammed Ali Al Ahmed from Saudi Arabia asks, or he says, "Hello there, Mr. Witty. I would like that you would answer me. How much does agility increase armor, and how much does intelligence increase mana, and how much does strength increase health, and does armor affect magic damage? Loves from Mohammed Ali Al Ahmed, Saudi Arabia." Smiley face. Okay, so you could get into a whole debate about this, but the simple facts is agility. Every 3 points of agility increases your armor by 1. Each point in agility increases your attack speed. As for intelligence, each point increases your mana by 15, and also each point increases mana regeneration. And for strength, each point increases your hit points by 25, and each point also increases your hit point regeneration. Now, another thing to take into account is if you were a Blade Master, for example, and all your agility points, his primary attribute is agility. So for every point of agility, he also gains +1 damage. So if a Blade Master has 20 agility, he should have +20 damage, or whatever it is. It kind of works that way. So you want to focus on agility for a primary agility hero like Blade Master, or Tauren Chieftain wants to focus on strength tomes. He's going to get the most out of it compared to any other heroes. And does armor affect magic damage? Yes, it does, because it affects basically everything, especially heroes. They reduce the damage from everything, but generally armor will have as much of an effect against magic damage as it does against everything else. But you can see, if you look at the armor icon when you're in Warcraft 3 and hover your mouse over it, it should give you a description telling you what types of armor it is, what type of armor it is, and what damage it takes from certain types. So light might take extra damage from magic and piercing, for example. Okay. Table Bark Matt Naples from New Jersey says, "Greetings, my name is Matt Naples, I'm from New Jersey. So when you do this accent, don't do that terrible Texan accent that you did in the video, because that's not how we talk. Okay, here's my question. What is the worst triple hero combination in the game? Thanks, bro." Hello. Right, okay. What is the worst triple hero combination? Keep this short and sweet. We are going to say Firelord, Alchemist, and Pit Lord. The worst 3. Heck, you can even put them in whatever combination you like. It doesn't matter. But they're pretty terrible, in my opinion. PM Pat24, Patrick from California, says, "Hey, I'm Patrick from California, and I was wondering if you would ever have certain days where you would play custom games with fans." Alright, I have no idea whether that's the right accent. I was kind of going for a bit of a surfer thing there, but there weren't many surfer sort of expressions. Anyway, I would say that Friday and Saturday are the best days for this, because I'm more likely to be on closer to the weekend, where I can actually not wake up at 3 a.m. because for my weekdays, for my work days, I actually get up at like 3:30 a.m. I do a crazy bad hours for my job, unfortunately, so I cannot really be up very late by the time most fans are on. So Friday, Saturday, I'm going to be on. I'm much more reliably on Friday and Saturdays is essentially what I'm trying to say. So check out GBR channel or Clan GBR on Fridays and Saturdays. Javier Gomez from Spain says, "Noob question, Spain. Your accent could be Cumbrian, since I spent a whole year in Calais. I have recently started to play Warcraft 3 since I really liked your videos. However, I can't play with the keyboard at all. I find the F1, F2, F3 are quite far from my fingers. So the question is, how the hell do you place your hand on the keyboard to reach all the buttons you need to press properly?" I'm trying to do Spain. Como estar? Que hora es? I'm not sure about that one, to be honest with you. Okay, answering your question. You don't use the F1 and F2 and F3, basically. Very few people do. Just stick to hotkeying your heroes as 1, 2, or 3 instead. So instead of having F1 for your hero, just hotkey it as 1. So select your hero, press Control 1. It's much easier, believe me. Shouts will echo 1. Connie Ridehull, Halsey from Sweden, Skane, says, "Hello, Witty, how would a 4-man team, one of each race, be able to counter another 4-man team, 4 undead, who instantly go rush? Is there any way to counter that, or is it just a good game? Connie Ridehill Halli." I can't say the last bit, sorry. From Skane in Sweden. Good luck! Yes. Yes. Okay, let's have a look, shall we? So, how would a 4-man team, one of each race, be able to counter 4 undead is what you want to know. If they're instantly ghoul rushing. Okay, so survive is my answer here. But this really obviously depends on your allies and whether you're lucky. Is the person on the outside, the one that's getting attacked, completely and utterly terrible and wants to take on 4 people by himself? Because that's probably what's going to happen. The best bet is to try and react as fast as you can. If you're human, pull up some militia. Get some help, because what they're doing is they're doing an all-in. This is all-in for them. So you either sacrifice that base. You have different options. You can either sacrifice the person being attacked's base. This all depends on how your allies react. And kill one of them instead. But this is very dependent, very risky. Or you could all band together and try to defend that base. Stay as far back in the back. Hopefully you've got enough range. And bring in any militia that you have available if you're human, or anything that you can possibly bring, skeletal rods, anything that can help you, because if they are ghoul rushing, that is all in. They are going for it, and if it fails for them, they have almost definitely lost. So your idea, your whole goal is to survive. Anything you can do to survive until you can get to the point where you start playing mid-game and then they've lost. So that's what I suggest. Survive. Quaz 123 from USA, Ohama, Nebraska, says, "Hi, I'm Quaz 123 and I'm from Ohama, Nebraska, USA. How corn did you find out how corn about Warcraft 3 corn?" Well, I'm not sure what the hell you're asking there, but I'm going to say the only answer that could possibly answer that question is corn. Michael Owen from Australia says, "Hey Witty, why all the hate on the orcs?" Well, I'll tell you. Who likes them? Who likes them? They're boring, they're slow, they're chunky, they get in the way, it's painful to play. I just made a lot of new enemies. Orc just doesn't work for me. I like Night Elf, and they're kind of almost the opposite of Orc. They're very fragile. They're ranged for the most part. They're a bit more hit and run potentially, but Orc can also be that way. But really, Orc are kind of more strong and solid and slow, whereas Night Elf are fast and fragile. So I guess that's why I dislike Orcs. I don't hate them, but I guess that's why I dislike Orcs the most out of the races, because they're as far from my style of play. Mr. Blade Venom, who doesn't say where he's from, but he asks, how many times have you accomplished the ROC and TFT campaigns? I couldn't tell you a number, but I've certainly done them both multiple times on all the difficulties, and I love them. It's well worth going back and playing them, because Blizzard have always been very good at making campaigns. And the Reign of Chaos and the Frozen Throne campaigns are no different. They are both very fun to play, so I would suggest that you do so the same. That you play them yourself if you haven't done so yet. Heck, play them again, why not? Okay, this is from question mark. So this person didn't want to be named, but I'll throw in an accent for them. I think I did a somewhat Deckard Cain earlier, but I'll throw in more of a Bane this time. But it will also sound like Deckard Cain, because they do sound similar. Okay.
My question is, what kind of tavern heroes are good for different scenarios? Like for a hero such as the Pit Lord, what kind of situation in a Warcraft 3 game would he excel, be the best in? For other tavern heroes such as the Dark Ranger, what scenarios would she be best, excel in? I would be very appreciative if you answered the best scenario for every single tavern hero. Cheers.
Okay, well, we want to try and keep this short, because this video just keeps on going. So, let's see if I can answer this. What kind of tavern heroes are good for different scenarios? Okay, let's try and do each one. Okay, let me see. Let me get a list of them. I've got my little Warcraft 3 editor here, so that's good. Alchemist, okay, Alchemist, best scenario he would obviously be in would be a large game. Or, no, actually, I'm going to say these are like the best possible scenarios. Would be a tight 1 versus 1, where you've hit a stalemate point, okay, and you have a few units left and a couple of heroes, and he has a few units left and a couple of heroes. Everything matters. Alchemist would be probably one of the best heroes in this scenario, because he's super fast, he can get around, escape without getting picked off quite comfortably, and he can use his transmute ability to give you cash to possibly get back into the game, or at the very least take units away from the enemy. Okay, Naga Sea Bitch, she's probably much better for well, she's very good for 1 versus 1 as a support hero for catching people out, but possibly also for 2 versus 2. I'm thinking 2 versus 2 here. If you had like another ally with Keeper of the Grove or something, so you could almost permanently CC someone and chase them down. I think Naga Sea Bitch would be pretty good in that, because her ultimate is very good against more units. So 2 versus 2 would have just that few extra units, I think, where she could use her ultimate, and Fort Lightning is very powerful as well in sort of bigger battles. So yes, she's pretty strong for that. But she's kind of an all-rounder, so I don't know, there's much of a strong scenario for her. Tinker is more free-for-all, or also, like the Alchemist, a bit of a 1 versus 1 stalemate situation where the one hero can make a big difference, and he can go around chucking pocket factories and do a ton of damage. He's really underestimated how powerful he can be, especially in free-for-all. Just how annoying. He drains your resources with that pocket factory, and he's very effective. He does a lot of sieging as well, and he's pretty damn fast, so he's hard to catch. Beastmaster, ideal scenario there would be to put him with an Archmage and possibly go down a summon route, maybe even get a third hero as well that summons, like Firelord, if you were really going crazy with it and the enemy didn't counter it. Because he has very powerful summons, especially the Quill Beasts, the Quill Boars, however they're called, and Brilliance Aura along with the Beastmaster would be just insane. Any game where summons are what matters, so if you've got no units left and you've only got heroes, he'd be really, really good. Because he can just pick things out, he can Scout very comfortably as well. So I'd say that. Dart Ranger is, I'm going to just say this right here, right now, it's a real tight touch between her and Panda as to who is the best neutral hero, but those two, as far as I'm concerned, are up there, whereas the other neutral heroes are like more down here and lower. So Dart Ranger, I personally think, is my favourite. That's real tough between her and the Panda, but she, again, she can charm. So those 1 versus 1 scenarios where every little unit matters. She's also very useful in big battles, like 4 versus 4, for example. If you rush, you could win games with Dart Ranger alone, because those skeletons are pretty powerful very early on in the game. And if you rush an enemy, for example, a human, you've got 4 people here, you've got 4 people there, they're fighting. There's a lot of units getting killed. If you're paying attention with that Dart Ranger, picking off the units that are lowest on HP, you get a skeleton. 1 skeleton for each time you do that. And if you're good enough, you could get 20 plus skeletons in these bigger battles. So she's really good for early rushes in 4 versus 4. Otherwise, she's just a solid hero for later on as well. Firelord, worst hero in the game, but best case scenario would be a situation where the enemy have absolutely no way to dispel or stop you, like CC you, stun you, because his ultimate is a challenge spell that can be stunned, and his summons can be basically abolished or dispelled, disenchanted, absorbed. God knows, they can be countered very easily. You can just move away from them. But basically, you want to be in a scenario with the Firelord. Perhaps he could be a good rush hero, a hero to tower push someone. So, for example, you get him as your second hero. So by this I mean Night Elf. Maybe you've gone Demon Hunter. Maybe you've got a few Huntresses. Maybe you've got a few Archers. And whilst you were doing that and creeping away, getting powerful, you were teching very early on. And as soon as you hit tier 2, you go to that tavern, you get Firelord, you bring all the wisps that you have with you, so you're going to have a fair few resources as well spare, and then you basically build Ancient Protectors in the enemy base whilst constantly putting pressure on. And the Firelord, hopefully, with the support of towers and that, will be able to allow his little lava spawn to get enough hits to keep spawning, and it will just get out of control. This doesn't just apply to Night Elf. It could be the same with Orc, with them towering. It could be the same with Human, with them towering. Probably preferably Human, actually, because an Archmage has the Brilliance aura that also supports Firelord and keeps him going. Panda, now for me personally, I would say Orc. Could be 1 versus 1, it could be anything, to be honest. Even bigger battles are good for him. Good for this scenario. I'd say bigger battles. So 2 versus 2 to 4 versus 4 potentially. Free for all rounder. Tauren Chieftain, Panda, Shadow Hunter. All 3 of those heroes are high level, and you have got yourself army killers. The Shadow Hunters will pretty much keep your heroes alive indefinitely. Tauren Chieftains will just keep them stunned and tear them to pieces with Shockwave. The Panda will also reduce the amount of damage they can do with Drunken Haze, and then also tear them to pieces with Breath of Fire. Not to mention that Breath of Fire, unlike Shockwave, can hit air, so it's a really solid counter to air units. If you're an Orc and you sometimes come across mass gargoyles or whatever it might be, or mass gyros to kill your wyverns, quivens, whatever they might be, Panda is a beautiful sort of combination with that lot. Pit Lords, Archmage, Firelord, Pit Lord. Casters, Spellbreakers. Get those all combined and have fun. Have a lot of fun. Because Rain of Fire does a lot of damage, Flame Strike does a lot of damage, and Blizzard does a lot of damage. And if you get the enemy in the right position, this is more likely to be 4 versus 4, but it can also be smaller battles, you are going to do a lot of damage. Alright. Blimey. Blimey. Martin Kostel from Czech Republic says, "Hi WTii, why is your Divine Shield cancelled when you use Staff at TP? I didn't test it with invulnerability part, but I expect the same. Thank you." The reason for this, basically what you're saying is that if you use Divine Shield, and I just tested this, and this includes invulnerability pots, so if you use either a Divine Shield or an invulnerability pot and then use the Staff of Teleportation afterwards, it cancels the Defined Shield and or Invulnerability pot. The reason why it does this is for balance. Basically, Blizzard don't want you to abuse, because otherwise you're getting away with murder, really. Think about it. If you could just take an Invulnerability pot, you could then use that when it has like, and when it has like 5 seconds left before it expires, then use your Staff of Teleportation to get out of any scenario, and you'll never be punished for it. This is why it cancels that effect. It's so you can be punished. So if someone's Staff of Teleportation, using Staff of Teleportation, they can be CC, stunned, hexed, whatever. They can be controlled. It can be dealt with, and therefore it's balanced. De Sapices Edward from Latvia says, if you would get the chance to help create a new Warcraft 3 game, what would you put in the game? What stays and what's out? I think I answered this earlier, actually, looking back at it. So, yeah. Orc gets removed, and Flying Ghouls are in. I'm not going to go into any further detail on that, because I know that'll just wind people up, and I'm sure it's wound them up already. So, yeah, it's kind of funny to get that one in again. Callan Dark from Canada, says, your top 3, oh my god, that just sounds like a European. It's hard to do it with such a short question. Your top 3 favorite mercenary units, eh? I can't really do Canada, I'm sorry. But I will answer your question anyway. Murloc Snarecaster, that's the dude what slows. Generally, if it's not him, it would be the Kobold Geomancer. Or, yeah. Because those two, they can slow and they can abolish magic, and they do a lot of damage as well. But preferably the Murloc Snarecaster, because I think he's ranged. But anyway, he does the most damage out of those two. The Murloc Huntsman, which is the one from, I can't remember, Cherryville, I think the map is. And he's the little yellow fish-looking character that can throw a net. So you essentially get Ensnare, which is something Orcs get at tier 2, but you can get this guy right at the start of the game. So that's very powerful early on. If you can ensnare a unit and then have enough units around you to kill that, you get yourself a huge advantage. Not to mention you can use into creep. So you pull the creeps back and then ensnare it so they can't even run back. And you just pick them off one by one. And the other one, which is a biggie, is the Razormane Medicine Man. Now, he is on the map Deadlock in my 4 vs 4 games. And he's the piggy that basically summons the healing wards. And he can also summon 2 little spirit pigs that do damage, which are a bit like the feral wolves for Farseer. So he's really good. As long as you don't lose him and you can keep those healing wards alive, he makes a massive difference in those 4 vs 4 fights. He really pays for himself. So those are my 3 favourite mercenary units. Puddle Blog from England, so I can use my own accent here. I don't even know if I have an accent. I'm technically from Essex, and I do sound a bit Essex, so I do have a bit of that, but I've probably adapted some other accents, so I'll just say this as I would. Gagoo! What's the best way to improve your gameplay? Personally, I've never actually played the game online, just the campaign, and now after watching all your videos, I feel I know a lot more about playing as well. However, I'd like to know a way for rapid improvement, or is it simply to play game after game after game? Well, the best way for you to improve is to go to a site that hosts Warcraft 3 replays that you can download. So Warcraft 3 replayers could be one. Just Google it and you'll find them. They're quite easy to find. So you want to get top replays and you want to watch the best of the best play. Because there's a reason why the best play the best. It's so that they can improve their game and stay at the top of the game. So you want to watch the best, observe their build orders, and then memorize them or write them down. And then go into a custom game. Don't go straight into Battle.net. Don't put yourself in a situation where you might be panicking or you can't concentrate. Just focus. You're against a computer or you're against no one. You're just concentrating at the start on Warcraft 3. Getting your build order down and creeping. Once you've learnt those, then go into Battle.net and practice against other people, because opponents will surprise you. There might be a Blade Master in your base. Well, if you haven't practiced, you're not going to know how to deal with that. So you've got to get the build order down and get a stable get a stable feel on the game first before you enter online play. That's what I would suggest. So replays, copy them, what they do, and practice. Then take that onto Battle.net and see how you get on. Sun Moon Brothers from Kazakhstan. I can't tell whether this is a troll or not, but it gives me a chance to do Borat's voice, or try to. He says, and these are troll questions to be honest, but I'll go with them. Witty, do you have a girlfriend? If not, whether it's because you are a homosexual. If this is the case, do you like Elton John? Is it hard to be homo in UK? So he's got 3 questions. That's like the first one, even though that is a multitude of questions. No, I currently do not have a girlfriend at this moment. If not, whether it is because you are homosexual. No, I am not homosexual. Got nothing against it. It's just not the way I roll. If this is the case, do you like Elton John? No, not particularly. I don't like Elton John much. Is it hard to be a homo in UK? I guess I wouldn't know. And it's probably not as hard as it used to be, I imagine. And hopefully that goes the same for most other countries, you know. It's just about progression, isn't it? Okay, let's move on to your next bits. Oh, good. Are you teased in your hometown for being a little bit non-traditional? Not particularly, because outside of this environment where I am at the moment, I might be considered more of a normal person. Although not to those that I know, and not to those that know me. So at work and places like that, I'll probably be a bit more toned down, unless I'm in my comfort zone. Because when I'm in my comfort zone, I then let go and become the person that I am when I'm here. Because this is who I am, but obviously it's a bit harder to start shouting out "Gagoo" at work. I can't really do that. But people get a fair idea. I do let bits of me slip when I'm at work or other places. And this one makes me laugh. Does Frankie warm up your bed at night when you are playing? So I think he means Pracky, but we can call him Pranky. In World of Warcraft, someone used to call him Pracy, so I call him Pracy from time to time as well, just to wind him up. Does he warm up my bed? No, he doesn't, because he lives about 250 miles away from me, so it would be a bit of a trek to get to my house, sneak into my house and warm up the bed, which is just over there, whilst I'm playing without me noticing. So no. Henny Hesto from Germany says, what do you think of pure harassment tactics in 4-on-4, like mass motors or mass raiders? Do you think they are strong tactics and work in teams with very skilled players, or are they only applicable in low level games? I could do a much better German accent when I'm actually speaking German, but when I'm trying to do it with an English word, when I'm trying to do it with English words, it flags a bit. Okay, so what do I think of pure harassment tactics in 4 versus 4? I think it's the way to go, to be honest. The best way to win 4 versus 4 is generally on the maps where they're split, so it's almost like a 2 versus 2 and a 2 versus 2. So 4 people on each team, but there's like 2 sets of 2 teams, if you know what I mean. So, for example, you're on this side, Team A attacks, and they threaten the enemy team so much that the team below TPs to help them. That means Team A gets back either by running or TPing, probably TPing, and then your Team B on your team then goes and attacks down here, which then forces them to TP back, and you rinse and repeat over and over and over until eventually you wear them down. They run out of gold, they can no longer afford to TP back, they lose too many units in their base because they can't get there to defend. Harassment works, it's very effective. You say more specifically though, pure harassment tactics in 4 versus 4 like mass mortar or mass raiders. You won't probably get away with it in the high level games, maybe, but most likely in the mid to low level games you can get away with that kind of strategy, which is really what your question was, but I thought I'd throw in the first bit because I think harassment wins the game, but it has to be a harassment that involves normalish units, you know, reliable units. Mass mortars and raiders are cool, but it's very hard to actually pull that off in a game where everyone knows what they're doing at the high level. They won't stand for that kind of level of play, or it's unless they're just having a really bad game and everything's not going their way. That sort of thing won't work against them. Anyway, thanks. Okay, so Max Crawford from Scotland says, if you could add a new fifth race to Warcraft 3, what would they be? In particular, can you describe the three heroes and their abilities? Scotland! Okay, I do like doing a Scottish accent, if you can call that a Scottish accent, and I don't get to do it that often. So, yes, if I could add a fifth race, I mean, if I'm adding it to Warcraft 3 and I'm not concerned about balance, or I'm not like a Blizzard designer or anything like that, and my job is on the line, and I was just having fun, I would add Draenei. They're the guys from World of Warcraft. You may have heard of them. They're like the space goats. Basically, they didn't really make much sense, and that's probably why I would add them into Warcraft 3, because that's my kind of sense of humour. It's stuff that doesn't really make much sense. They would just be bad, but in a kind of fun way, because they'd almost be like the space race. They'd have like laser swords and stuff like that. Be a bit like Protoss. It wouldn't really make much sense having them in, you know, Warcraft 3, which could be a lot of fun, a lot of diversity, which is what it's all about. This is why Warcraft 3 is so good, is because you can just pick any hero, any unit, and make it work. And Draenei they'd be just the same. You could just do all sorts. Maybe neutral Draenei heroes as well. Space Ghosts, brilliant. In particular, can you describe the three heroes and their abilities? Ooh, I don't know. Oh, that's tough. That would be like a whole different thing in itself. I don't know if I could do that quickly, but I imagine there'd be very similar to Night Elf. Put it that way. I think the Draenei hero is quite similar in that. Like the Demon Hunter, he's got the two blades. It's kind of futuristic. He's got these two blades, but the Draenei guy would be some sort of massive agility guy, and he's got like kind of laser swords. Like I say in the Protoss, it'd be a bit like a Protoss Zealot. It's very similar in that sense. I think that'd be quite cool. Their ability, like all of this, their ability. I couldn't go into that. I'm sorry. That's like for a whole another day or something like that. That'll take me forever. So I'm going to cut that off there. But I would say Draenei. Okay, I've got two questions here, both very similar. One is from M. Schildorfer from Austria, and the other one is Nemenem Dylan from USA, Minnesota. And they're both basically asking the same question, and I'll just go with the Minnesota one because that's the first one on the list at the moment. So, hello Willie, my question is, how long have you been playing Warcraft 3? And I know that probably sounds nothing like their accent, because I don't know what their accent really sounds like, but that was one American that I can do. Anyway, how long have I been playing Warcraft 3? Pretty much since it came out. Okay, it's got to be like 10 years. I don't even know the actual official length the game's been out, maybe longer than that. But I remember back then, that's when I got my first computer that had the internet, basically. I didn't have the internet before this point. And me and my dad went to go get a computer for ourselves so that we could get into the whole internet thing. And this is back when I was 16/17. So a good 10 years ago, basically. And I remember going into PC World, I think it was. We picked up a computer, got one that we liked, and I remember buying Grand Theft Auto 3, and I saw Warcraft 3 on the shelves as well, and I picked that up. And I believe that Warcraft 3 had probably been out for about a month maximum. I don't think I started at the very, very first day it came out, but basically as soon as I could play it on that computer, when I got it back home and installed and got the internet working, that's what it was. So that was leading into my long-lived obsession with Warcraft 3.